What's up, NIO family? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with NIO, Tesla, SPY, and the broader markets. I'm going to break down some big news that's come out that's very important, which helped the market bounce to some extent. What you should be watching for as time goes on. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. Anyways, NIO is range bound. As we dip close to the low sixes or below, we like to bounce. But as we get close to about this 6.8 area, we like to reject. And we've been going back and forth for the last couple of days. We're still technically in this range. Now, if NIO loses support at 5.98, which is very close to about $6, we could be dipping more. But if we bounce here, we could be continuing to push back up to about 6.8. I'm hoping that NIO tries to bounce with the markets and we try to get bought back up, especially since we have lots of bullish news coming out. But it depends on how well we could end up holding up from here. Now, there was some good news and also other pieces of news that were not as great. Earnings came out and it was kind of like a buy the rumors, sell the news events. NIO was kind of flat after earnings, but we ended up seeing decent cash flow, I would say, overall, especially since their gross margins and other sales did turn a bit more positive. We're getting closer to profitability, but we're not quite there yet. And their overall guidance was quite strong because we're expecting a big increase in deliveries for this quarter. So that's some good news for NIO. And then there's been a lot of talk about how their sub brands, such as Firefly and Onvo, are going to likely help them to offset the sales declines that we've seen. That's another awesome piece of news, and hopefully this continues to help them. I think Onvo is going to be very, very big for them, and I can't wait to see what else the future holds. So that's going to be very, very key for how we end up moving. On top of this, we're going to be looking to see what happens with their sales outlook. Hopefully, we're seeing an improvement as well. As far as NIO goes, JP Morgan also gave NIO an overweight rating, and for now the price-price ratio is still flat, trying to go up a little bit. Thursdays, however, are known for being a weak day for NIO. They're only green about 49% of the time, so it's one of the weaker days of the week. And for now, there's not really much else coming out for us. Now, the whole market did bounce due to the fact that we saw this antitrust lawsuit that was filed. We had the federal district courts come out, and the judges in the U.S.'s case, they basically have come out and they have set a lot of remedies to mitigate the overall, changes that have been happening. However, what happened was we got a new ruling that came out from the US district judge, and they're saying that the search giant won't have to sell its Chrome web browser. That's some good news, at least so far. And then simultaneously, it's also going to be in a position where it will not have to once again pay Apple to make Google the default search browser on its devices. The court could revisit that part, but so far it's not going to be prevented to make payments to distribution partners for preloading Google Search, Chrome, and other Gen AI products. So some good news came out from this, and this is why the share price is up quite a bit. This limits regulations on Google and allows them to once again continue their practices. And then we had Waller from the Fed come out saying that he's going to be looking for potential rate cuts very soon. And then President Trump is saying that he wants to appeal to the Supreme Courts to once again review his tariffs. He's hoping that they get approved and that they are legitimate, depending on what the courts end up saying. So that's going to be very key. Tomorrow is going to be Thursday, September 4th. We basically have jobless claims in the morning. Then we have our ISM services numbers at 10 o'clock a.m. So expect a big move once this data comes out for tomorrow. Other than that, there's not really much else for earnings tomorrow. We just have Broadcom and a few more. And then we also have the market at neutrals, making up the majority of sentiment, at least for the time being. NIO has a tendency of essentially rejecting off resistance around 6.8 and bouncing off support like this. So we're just kind of like going back and forth here. So we're going to see if this tries to push back up towards the 6.8 area. If we lose the $6 zone, we could be dipping lower. But if we break 6.8, we're looking for a big push right back up. In my opinion, we're just kind of range bound like this. We're kind of like going back and forth between supply and demand. And we're going to see if this breaks up or down depending on these levels. But overall, we're still kind of stuck. So I do think NIO is going to try to bounce for 6.8, but for now we're just trading sideways. And if we can't hold above it, there's going to be a risk of us turning back down to $6. I wouldn't be surprised if NIO kind of pushes like this and then comes back down. And then, we might trade sideways, but if we lose 5.98, we could be dipping a little bit. So I would be a little bit concerned, especially as we have these gaps. So be careful. I think we're going to likely see some consolidation as time goes on. And we're going to see which way this ends up breaking. For now, there's not really much of a move unless we start dipping below 5.98. SPY, on the other hand, is more bullish. We're going to see it performing kind of like a head and shoulders like structure. I could see it basically panning out looking at this, right? This looks like a left shoulder. This could be like a head, and this could be a right shoulder, but it depends. Do we get a rejection here or not? I think we push a bit higher for essentially 646 to 647. And we'll see if we break all-time highs, return back down from there, but there is some upside potential. On the QQQ, it's the same thing. We're trying to push back up towards this 570 area. If we push for like 575, we're going to see if we reject off this trend line to dip lower. But I anticipate some upside for the low 570s. The IWM also has a head and shoulders like pattern, but this might once again hold up and try to go a bit higher to form that right shoulder. So it's possible to retest 235, and then we'll see if you reject off that or not on the Russell. ES is looking more bullish. It's favoring 6480 to 6500. NQ is going to be favoring basically 23,500, so we'll have to see how that goes. Bitcoin's consolidating. It could be pushing right back up towards about 112,500. Tesla's once again making higher lows, bouncing off this trend line, so it could be looking for an attempt for 340, and we're going to have to see how it goes from there. Nvidia is once again holding up very well. If we end up losing a 169, it's going to be a bad sign. Might retest 169. We'll see if we bounce back up towards the 170s. Apple's looking more bullish, favoring basically 240. Looking at AMD, we're favoring 163.5 or above, so I see some upside potential. Coinbase is kind of consolidating here. If we lose 300, we're going to be dipping, but if we break 305, we're bullish. I anticipate some range-bound price action here before it starts dipping lower. Amazon could be looking for essentially 227 or above, so I see some upside potential as well right here. Meta is going to be favoring basically 741 or above as our potential resistance. Google's favoring 233 plus, and then Microsoft is also going to be favoring 505, and we'll just have to see how it goes from there. The VIX is also dipping here, so this might continue to fall as the market tries to bounce, so there is some upside potential. NIO, however, is looking a little bit lackluster. It depends. We're still in a range right here. If we can't make a higher low here, if we push to like 6.8, then reject, we could end up retesting $6. We're going to see if that holds. I wouldn't be surprised if we just continue to trade sideways for some time, but we're going to see which way we break. It might be to the downside if we get a rejection, so be very careful. And that's all I'm really seeing for now, just a lot of sideways price action, possibly a move lower. The overall market might try to bounce a bit, looking at the current trend as buyers keep on defending. But NIO is showing a little bit of weakness just temporarily. I do think that Q4 and the start of next year will be a lot stronger, though, as we have a lot of sales potential and a lot of growth that's going to be coming. So we'll have to see how it goes from there. But until then, I just wanted to say I wish you all nothing but the best, and I thank you all so much for listening. NIO could be looking for a test of 6.5 to 6.8 tomorrow, then a rejection, and sideways price action for now. We've been shopping for the last couple of weeks. There's not really much going on with the share price until we see one of these directions break. Until then, I wish you all nothing but the best, and I thank you all so much for listening. Once again, I'll be back tomorrow. Until then, have a good day, night, or evening, wherever you guys are around the world. And I'll be back very, very soon. Thank you for listening. NIO to the moon, because the long term is very bright. I do think NIO is going to be running to double digits next year sometime. But for now, we're going to see how well we can hold up given all the pieces of news and such. And we're going to be very, very patient nonetheless. Thank you for listening, and peace out.